Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On Podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to an exciting interview today. I have Dan Abel, National Sales Manager for Car Cutter. We're going to be talking about merchandising, speed to market, giving dealers a competitive edge in this critical area of merchandising. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you having me.
Just for context, you and I have known each other for a long time. How long have you been in and around automotive retail, and what type of roles before coming to Car Cutter did you hold?
That's funny you say that. So I started in 2001 at a Chrysler Jeep store here in South Carolina, and quickly adapted to selling cars on the internet on eBay, and so we grew that and actually started working for an independent dealer who all we did was sell to people all over the world on eBay.
Those were the wild west days of eBay.
Oh man, yeah, but it was very, very cool because you got to involve yourself with so many different. I thought just in the U.S., but we had people that would buy cars from us from all over the world.
Right.
And so importing or exporting, I guess, cars, it's a whole new ball game, and ended up in the low country, as we call it, the Hilton Head area of South Carolina, where a dealer wanted to start selling cars on eBay. Didn't know how to do it, didn't want to learn, wanted to just kind of plug in. And so that's where I came in and stayed with them for the majority of my career, and ended up being the guy who, I'm sure every dealership either has had one or does have one. It's the guy who does the things that nobody else wants to do or nobody else wants to learn about, right? And
well, you know dealership operations, and you know that if you raise your hand once or twice, you probably opened the door for a whole string of tests.
Right. It was during those early ages where people did have websites, but they were checking the box, right? They were just coming out of the Auto Trader magazine and big onto trying to get into Auto Trader, the marketplace as we know it today. And so then it became things that were something that you've pioneered a lot in the industry, which is not just having a website and checking the box, but knowing what the heck you're doing. You know what I mean? Knowing who's coming, knowing who's going, analytics, and paid search ads and all those things, again, that dealers wanted to do, but they were like, hey, who wants to take care of this for us? So I was that kind of guy.
Well, now you're with an exciting company with really amazing technology, having worked at car dealers, knowing how important merchandising is. And of course, we're going to talk about some of the cost benefits that Car Cutter brings, but let's at a high level. There are many dealers today that are struggling to remain profitable, depending on brand.
Sure.
Probably being a Toyota dealer, you're doing quite well. Being a Stellantis dealer, you're not doing so well. So dealers are desperately looking for ways to move their inventory, decrease their turn rates, and get back into profitability. So let's talk about that. At a very high level, how is Car Cutter helping dealers be more efficient?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So I worked for a group that had 4 dealerships. And at the time, this has been several years ago, we decided to take photography in-house, and it became a speed thing. We weren't being able to utilize a vendor properly to have the speed to market that we want to have. So while that seemed like an additional expense, payroll wise, what it ended up doing was bringing, ended up being much cheaper, but also the results were night and day. Being able to speed up that merchandising and actually get your cars online. They're all depreciating, even new cars, despite what we want to look at, they're all depreciating. And so the time to market is so key. And this has been many, many years ago. We didn't have a platform like Car Cutter when we made that adjustment. And so while I understand where dealers are coming from, margins are much, much thinner. I feel like the juice is worth the squeeze, as a guy I used to work for used to say.
Because because dealers traditionally have had to chase lot services companies to come and take photos. But then they had other issues, right? It wasn't just a lot services company. If they were limited in space or if they had a snowstorm, then some dealers invested in very expensive photo booths. But today, with your mobile app, with the AI technology and the ability to remove all the noise and put beautiful backgrounds. I mean, Dan, this has to be not just cost savings, say less expensive than a lot services company, but that speed to market with great photos that stand out. At one time, it seemed like the dealers with larger lots who could afford a photo booth had an advantage. Now I'm looking at the Car Cutter website, and it's car-cutter.com. Those photos look like they're in a 360, photo booth, but they're actually photos that were just taken on the lot. How are dealers adapting to this kind of wow technology that makes them look like the largest dealer group in the country?
Yeah, I agree. It's leveling the playing field, right? You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars, but not only you have to spend tens of thousands of dollars for a photo booth, but you also don't need to take up that real estate. The Car Cutter app, allows you to back a car right out of its parking spot and walk around it and take your photos. And we remove all those distractions. I kid quite a bit of, whether it be taking those photos in the back where they just cleaned it up, where you have the tires stacked up and the loud music going on where people are just having a good time washing cars, to the sales guy having a cigarette in the background, to the distractions of all the inventory, right? You would believe, because you see this every day, but many people wouldn't believe that customers look past some of the images that you put up there. You have a car that's in the middle of a lot with a sea of other cars. They may look at other cars in the background and go, hey, what about this car? That may be a service loaner. It may be a customer's car. I had a dealer call me one day and he said, I got to have your platform. And I'm like, wow, this is the easiest, I've ever had it. And I said, why? And he said, because right behind my dealership where we have to take photos, because it's the only piece of real estate we have, is a gentleman's club. And I cannot allow the branding of the gentleman's club to be right over the top of the car. So
creates a little conflict.
It does, people may frown upon that. So I had another dealer that called me and said, exactly where he's taking the photos, there was a billboard of the dealer down the street. And so it's like, it does level that playing field to make it to where not only are we putting it into a 3D showroom, but the realism to me, and obviously I'm biased, right? But it's unprecedented. It is some of the best realism that you could ask for in a product these days. And with the AI giving you that almost instant result, I mean, you can see the difference.
So Dan, we have two things to cover because I want to be very clear with dealers who may not be happy with their photos and time to market, getting those cars fully merchandised online. There's two things. The app, you make it idiot proof, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
So the app guides a person, regardless of where the car is parked, to take a series of pictures, making sure it's at the right angle, making sure all the bases are covered. But what I thought was interesting is that once those photos are taken, there's no uploading into the cloud. Everything is done automatically. So as long as the photos are taken, that person doesn't have to go. Remember the old days, it was like, oh, we got to connect our phone to this PC and we have to load the photos up. I mean, that's a huge time suck if we look back at what people used to do, or a lot services company that comes in and takes photos and they're manually loading those photos up, which the dealer's getting charged for. This is one app, foolproof, and everything gets uploaded from the app. Am I correctly stating the advances in this technology?
100%. We all have, and I've been there, we all go, okay, guys, like we got this list of cars we got to go take pictures of, right? And we check the box. We go out there, we get 10, 15, 20, whatever the Auto Trader rep tells us to get, right? Or whatever the, the manual tells us to get. And we go out there, we capture those images, and then we go to lunch, right? Or we figure out what's the next thing. Where's the car deal? While that is important, you are doing one of the most important things for merchandising by capturing those images.
Preach it.
But it's got to be clean. It's got to be consistent. I talk about all the other websites you may go visit, and they're not facing different ways. They're not in different environments. If you're going to buy anything, first of all, it's going to have pictures. Second of all, they're going to be clean and consistent. But what you hit on was, yes, you set up as the dealer, the used car manager, the general manager, you tell us, hey, Daniel, I want to have XYZ pictures and angles. Okay. And then you're right, Brian, we make it idiot proof. They take their handy dandy phone that they're already taking pictures with already. They go out, they plug in a VIN, and it tells them exactly what angle to stand at. If they're not in the right angle, it won't let them take the picture. They capture the 25, 30, 45, however many images, and they move on to the next car. And those images will be backgrounded, placed into a virtual 3-dimensional showroom, ultimate realism, as I'm giving my plug, right? But then, yes, you don't have to go back and sit down at your computer. You got to download them. You got to then upload them. Then you got to rearrange them. You tell us also how you want them arranged. So we can photograph the car, what's most efficient for the photographer. But if you want them merchandised a different way online, I had a dealer call me one day and say, hey, my Auto Trader package only allows me to have 8 photos. And I'm going to spend a bunch of money if I want more. And I don't want my photographer, though, to have to do anything different. I want them to take outside photos and inside photos. They have
a system already. Yeah.
Right. And it's efficient. Take 5 minutes and take photos. But what he wanted on his Auto Trader package was that hero shot, right? And then he wanted to show the navigation and the leather and the sunroof and all those features that make somebody keep looking at their car. And so we can do that without having the photographer jump in and out of the car.
I love it because the app knows what photo and what step, right?
Yes.
I love that. So each photo is tagged with what the photo was covering, and thus the merchandising is really completely at the control of the dealer. Dan, when I think of how many websites I've seen still to this day with photos with other cars in the background, or in the wintertime, a pile of snow, has there been any studies that shows, say, accelerated turn rate with better photos versus the standard, busy, distracting photos? I don't know if I've ever seen a study, but we're looking at new furniture for a new house, and you go to the furniture sites and they're clean. Everything is AI now, simulated bedrooms, simulated living rooms. There's no distractions. There's nothing there. Obviously your technologies is doing exactly that for the auto industry, but what do you tell for dealers who say, hey, if I make this investment and have great photos, what can I expect in engagement or turn rate? Any data on that?
Yeah. So, I, being kind of a student of yours for quite some time we were joking earlier about, learning about Google Analytics and, in the early days in my digital career. And I racked my brain, about how can we as Car Cutter track this? And it's really hard, if at all, that you can do, because we are taking those images and we pass them on to a inventory management platform that then will syndicate them out to your website, your Auto Trader. So tagging or bagging any of that kind of stuff is really tough for us. So that being said, though, I will tell you one that'll probably blow your mind is a mutual friend of ours that's a website provider. Did a very large client of ours' website, and they're still a client to this day, and realized they were getting 52% more clicks from third-party websites, not even their own. 52% more clicks than they were prior to utilizing Car Cutter. And Car Cutter being not all the speed to market and those types of things, but just every car having images and they all looking the same. That's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
basic premise.
Yep.
So that was
You
mine.
know, Dan, one of the things on the marketplaces, I just think it's like any dealer who doesn't have your technology or a similar technology to make their photos stand out is missing a huge point.
I agree.
When someone's buying a $25,000 car or a $75,000 used car or a $100,000 used car, they want to feel that that car is a good investment, and nothing does a better job of getting that interest than photos. You know, my wife, you know, has a lot of expertise in, say, luxury handbags. And these handbags can be 10, 15, $20,000. When those things are for sale, they take the time, you know, to properly photograph these things, details, scratches. And yet we have cars that are over $100,000 on busy, dirty lots, right? Hello, you know what I mean? It's like,
Brian, would she even look at one if it didn't have a photo? I mean, would she even like spend
oh,
time?
listen, if she saw a bag that was just sitting on a table with other bags, the impression she would get is that bag wasn't taken well care of. You see what I'm
Right,
saying?
right,
But if it's sitting on a table because of AI, because of photo realistic editing, it's sitting on a table, or, you know, if for retail, you know, you can put the Hermes box or the Louis Vuitton box next to it,
right.
right? All done automatically. So dealers really need to think about this very critical thing. And the truth is, if it's dummy proof, then there's no reason in your organization why you couldn't have somebody merchandising these cars every day, getting them online, showing bold and well photographed to get that engagement. There's no excuse other than you're not prioritizing merchandising.
Right.
So Dan, if somebody's using a lot service today, and they come to you and they say, "Hey, we want to use your platform." What does that onboarding look like? How long does it take a dealer to feel comfortable with using the app and basically saying to the lot services company, "Hey, I got this covered," or forcing their lot services company to use your app, right? I guess it could be, you know, either way.
Yeah.
It does it look like on a training and implementation stand?
Yeah, the app is very, very user friendly. So a lot of it is a lot of the onboarding is super easy for us. But you know, my team as well as I uh, am available to help, you know, with any onboarding, hands-on training or adjustments. The only things that typically take any, you know, solid time is going to be setting up integrations, you know, to get those feeds properly, you know, running. And then any design, because while we have several designs online that you can see, as you mentioned, on our website, car-cutter.com, you can see, I think we have about 20 different standard, as we call them,
Yeah,
showrooms.
and they
You
were
can
very attractive. Yep.
yeah, and you can add your own branding to the majority of those,
Right.
which is kind of common for our dealers. But if you say, you know, I want to create my own, you send us some inspiration. We'll mock something up. That is something that does take a couple days.
Of course. Of course.
But outside of
But
that, yeah,
if they pick one of the 20 you know, design gallery, you know,
right.
layouts, I mean, are they up and running in a few days after the
If that, yeah,
integration?
3 days maybe. Yeah, it's super easy. Super easy.
You know, Dan, you're coming to the Modern Retailing Conference in November, November 17th, 18th, 19th. I'm glad that Car Cutter is going to be there because, yes, we're going to be talking about the latest in personalizing websites and using first party and third party data to enhance the retail shopping experience and CDPs. But when it comes down to it, all the marketing in the world, all the data in the world isn't going to help if your photos look like crap. And if you're driving more and more people to a personalized experience, why would you ever drop the ball on merchandising? So I'm really glad that you will be there and being able to showcase your platform. That's really important. And Dan, if one of our dealers who are listening today wanted to reach out to you via email, what's the best email address for them to reach out? Because maybe some people say, hey, I'm not waiting to November to see this product. I want a demo. I want to show my used car team. I want my recon team to see this. What's the best email for you?
Sure. It's Daniel, Daniel .able, A-B-L-E, at car-cutter.com. Feel free to email me. You can also, as I reply, give me a call. Super easy. I did want to touch one thing, if you didn't mind, Brian. We talk a lot about websites, and we talk a lot about time to market merchandising. But one thing that, again, being kind of a student of yours for quite some time and thinking of paid search, the marketplaces we've talked about, they're tens of thousands, even some dealers I know you've come across spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in these areas. And yet we drive them to cars that are on display that either don't have photos, or the photos that they do have are not up to par with the budgets that they're spending. We spend all this money to drive them to a store that's either empty or cluttered. And I think it's high time. I'm trying to kind of pioneer a movement of merchandising, whether it's with Car Cutter or someone else, which I sure hope it's Car Cutter. But guys, being from the dealership background, I certainly want to drive that point home that we've got to take a turn here.
And you know what? It's interesting because as you were talking, I was just thinking about the last few days. I've been doing a lot of website visits, analysis, and the number of photos, like photos coming, new arrival. I know
the blankets. Yeah, the blankets over the car, right? Yeah.
And I'm like, how horrible is this? No one's buying or getting excited about a car without a photo. They're just not.
100%.
Rare as hen's tooth, like one of one car, and you could put it under a blanket or, under a brick, and they would still want it. But you're absolutely right. With the money we're spending on digital marketing, with the money that we're spending on just our infrastructure, our staff, our overhead, our floor planning costs, there's absolutely no reason why our merchandising of the vehicle photos, inside, outside, 360 view of the car, why it shouldn't be anything less than the very, very best. So I'm glad that Car Cutter's seeing some great success. Over 1,500 rooftops are using it and growing. So I hope by being on this podcast, you'll get more dealers saying, hey, let me check out what Car Cutter's doing. I need an upgrade to my vehicle merchandising. And remember, you can send an email, daniel.able, A-B-L-E, at car-cutter.com. Get a demo. Dan, I'm excited to have you in Palm Beach. The weather is perfect in November. Is your team excited to be there with the dealers?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're excited to grow Car Cutter and be part of the MRC.
Great. Well, Dan, thanks for your time today. Congratulations on an amazing app. I encourage dealers to go to car-cutter.com to see all the galleries, the examples, and listen, they're working with the who's who of automotive retail. Some of the largest dealer groups, some of the most profitable dealer groups in the industry. We don't have to name drop. Go to the website and just see it for yourself. I want to thank everyone who listened in, and you should know that this podcast is part of a series on the road to MRC. That's the Modern Retailing Conference, November 17th, 18th, 19th in beautiful Palm Beach, Florida. And you can go to modernretailingconference.com, get your tickets. The event sells out every year. It's going to be an amazing event as we embrace AI, new technologies, new sales process, and focus on some of the basics that still are haunting retailing, like merchandising. So make sure you listen to all of the guests in our Road to MRC series. And you could just type in the Brian Pash podcast into any of your favorite podcasting players. Thanks, Dan, for being on the show. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. And I hope to see many of you in November at the Modern Retailing Conference. Until then, have a great day.